Hi everybody. So I created a little GitHub to keep the project kind of contained. So it's just Sokoban, and the link is right there. I'll also put it in the description. And it's really simple. It's just everything we've done up until now with a little bit of how to build, some instructions if you're on a Mac of how to install ncurses. It's also super simple if you're on Linux. If you're on Windows, I'm sure there's a way. I just don't know it because I don't use Windows. And so what we're going to do in this one is I was talking a little bit about going to Raylib, but what I decided to do instead was just to do the whole game in ncurses. And to do that, we basically need to add menus and a level progression of some kind. And then that'll be the game. And then maybe we'll do something else if it catches my fancy, I guess. But in the meantime, before we actually get to implementing the menu system, the UI, and all that, we kind of just have everything in this one big file, which is fine. But if we're going to make the game a little bit bigger, we might as well start doing some code organization, if you will. So that's what this video is going to be about. It's going to be about organization. And the first thing to do is just to create a folder named SRC, and then we're just going to kind of get to work here. So the first thing that I kind of see that needs to be done, in my opinion, is this point class. We can just separate it real quick. So let's do a point.hppep. I should have just done touch there if anyone is curious. And then we can just delete this and go to point.hpp, do this, and that is all we need for our point class. The other thing to do is to put the main file over here because that's just common sense. Okay, so the next thing to do is, so I had that weird level file up. That confused me for a second there. So the next thing is we have these bit operations. We could include these as part of for what we're going to do over here with our state class, but I don't know if I like that, to be totally clear. Also include the point class right now. And what we'll do is we'll kind of do this one, we'll migrate one at a time, if you will. So what I want to do then, just to be a little bit more smart about this, is I want to update our make file. And that's pretty easy. Basically, what we need to do is we need to change the way this thing is working. So we need to tell it that there's going to be stuff to include in our source directory. Another way some people will do this is they'll have like an include directory, and then they'll put the header files in the include directory, and they'll put the I'm not in the right thing right now. I see. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. So my terminal was in the wrong place. But, oh, was it just right here? Yeah, oops. So they'll put the include directory in here, and then they'll put the header files in the include directory and the C++ files in the, or CPP files in the SRC. And there's some reasons why you may want to do this. In our case, everything's just kind of easier to navigate if we just put everything in the source directory, and we'll just keep it like that just for simplicity. So there's that. The next thing to do is because we're going to be changing to just having multiple C++ files in the source directory, we might as well just do that. So if we do a make right now, everything's working, which is great. I want to remove this, and then what I want to do, actually, so let's do that. And the other thing I want to do is I'm just going to start naming the program. So -o to name it. So now if we do make, you can see instead of getting a an a.out, we got a Sokoban. What's interesting is we now have this Sokoban executable in our untracked files, and we don't really want to track the it in terms of GitHub, because there's just no point. So we're just going to make it so it doesn't track it. So now if we do git status after we've changed our git ignore file, everything is hunky-dory. So that's our updated build command. And now what we can do is we can update our bit operations. And for me, these things probably just belong in their own implementation, just to keep them separate, because they're not really going to change. Again, when we go to making something for our state, which I'm going to actually rename right now to just Sokoban, because that's easy. We could make it a part of like the header file in the state or perhaps something else, but these I feel like because they're kind of not directly connected to the state, we could just put them in their own thing. So I'm just going to do touch bit operations header file. And now I can go into here, I can paste these, and you can see we have a missing there. Which one? Hashtag include. Maybe this will just remind me what it is. There it is. Yeah. Good. So now we have no errors in this file, but what we want to do, include bit operations. Okay, so now if we run it now, okay, so it's saying there's no changes, but let me, oh, because I'm not in the right thing. Let's now do make, and now we can run it again. Didn't do it, so we'll do like level 0 just because it's the easiest. And everything is still working. So now what we want to do is we're going to change the Sokoban. We're basically going to take all this code, starting from here, and I'm actually going to leave the render function out of the state. And I'll talk about that in just a little bit. So I'm taking all of these. All right, that is mine now. And I'm going to go in here. I'm going to make a new file, sokoban.header. And then I'm also going to do Sokoban C++. And I will back out of that directory. And now let's go into Sokoban header first. And we're also going to need the this one for that. And then what we can do is we no longer need our point class here. We also don't need this anymore. Well, actually, we are going to need that for a little bit. But we do need it here anyways. Okay, so the one thing I haven't been doing, now that I remember, is I haven't actually been doing this. And that's because we don't want to like redefine everything a bunch of times when the compiler is going through it twice. So we just do pragma once, and that will be a guard. Another way you can do this is if and def, and then you can do like bit operations, because that's the name of the thing. And then it's not in def, right? You can do define bit operations, HPP, and then, that should not be define. And then you can do hashtag end if, and that solves that. And then this is basically another way to guard. There's people way more knowledgeable on the subject of which one is best, but for our cases, and I know our compiler supports pragma once is perfectly fine, and it's a lot less verbose. So pragma once there, we didn't do it here. Just a guard again. Okay, so that's all looking fine now. And the next thing to do here is these inline functions. So typically when you have these header files, you're gonna like not actually do the implementation in here. Instead, what you're gonna do is you're gonna, one sec, I forgot to do include vectors. And maybe strings, if I remember how I implemented it. Okay, so I guess this is fine. So I need cassert and I need iostream just for, and include assert. We'll put it down there because that just feels right. Okay. So what I was saying was, what you'll typically see is these things will, instead of like this, in the header file, you'll have it like this, right? And then you'll actually define it in Sokoban C++. But because we're doing inline, we want to do it here because otherwise you get multiple definitions. For here though, basically, if we define it here without doing an inline, we could run into a situation where we break the only one definition rule where there would be multiple definitions, because it would compile it multiple times or basically create it multiple times in the new source code while your compiler is working. And the inline will just put it into where it would go, but in this case we define multiple times. Didn't really quite nail that description, but I hope that kind of made sense. But the way basically to handle that is, because this is a giant function and I don't really think it's appropriate to inline it, what we'll do instead is we're going to take this and we're going to go to Sokoban. I'm going to close all that. We're going to go to here. Yeah, so I guess I lost the thing when I was deleting stuff. Okay, so boom. And then what we can do is we can do include Sokoban HPP. Right, and now it's saying there's a problem because you're defining it a lot of times. So now I'm going to do that, and I'm also just going to delete these. I've never totally loved this practice, but I'm just going to follow the conventions for now. So I'll take that. There's that, and now I'm going to delete this, delete that, delete that. State update. We're going to change this actually. I'll get into why later, but yeah, so that's just going to be like that for right now. And then, so there's that. There it is. I wanted that, there, and now I need this, that. Okay. Okay, so there's Sokoban. And let's see. I think everything is fine on that. We'll see. Right, so let's start with this. We don't need this, but that's gonna go here now. We don't need that. There's a problem with this missing. And we're gonna need to handle this. So there's a problem with state update, right? Okay. So the reason why I took the get ch out of the state, I'm gonna come back to, so user input, we'll just name this. So this is get ch, and now we can do user input, right? So the reason why I did that is basically what I'm doing is I took out all the end curses code from our Sokoban stuff. And this is just because we kind of want to separate our concerns if we can, so that anything related to end curses is going to be in its own contained thing by the end of this. And the reason why is that if we decide later on we actually want to go to raylib, or we want to go to some other kind of way to render the game state, we don't have to update all the files. We only have to update one file that's related to how we interact with end curses. So now if I do it, does it work? So far so good. We'll do levels 1 because I like level 1. All right, and it worked. Okay, cool. So the next thing to do is exactly what I was talking about, which is basically getting rid of all the UI code, or the UI code, the end curses code from over here. So I kind of gave it away, but I'm going to name this UI.c++, and then we need to do a pragma once, just so I don't forget. And we're also going to do an end curses, so I also don't forget. Okay, so the first thing that I know I'm going to do is I'm going to need a UI init function. And this is basically going to be the code right here. That's all it is, really. So include UI header file, and then we'll do void UI init. All right, so that's pretty easy so far. And then we can just kind of replace it one at a time, and that just auto imported. The next thing is I want to basically make it so we don't need end curses at all by the end of this. So I'm just going to erase that, and then we'll know all the errors where we get to it. So the next error is going to be this one right here, get ch. So I'm going to make another one, void UI, or not void. We're going to return a char here, UI get char. And this one is just a straight wrapper of get ch. Unfortunately. So that one is fine. So now all of a sudden we don't need, we have one less place where we actually need this. The next thing to do here is I'm going to take this and I'm going to put this at the top of our state.render function. That way we no longer have this end curses stuff in our actual game loop. We've completely removed it. What's the problem here? Use of undeclared identifier. We're including UI, UI get char, UI get char. Okay, so I guess there was no problem. All right, so the last place where we actually use end curses is right here. So for right now, I'm just gonna do this. So there's gonna be void UI close. I'm actually going to put this up here. That feels a little bit more easy to follow. Okay, and just to match the ordering, I'll do that, and then I'll do that, and that's right. We don't really need it till we get to here anyways. Okay, UI init, UI close, UI get char. So everything looks good there. The one problem you can see is right here, where we basically don't have anything working. Oh, and we actually need to call UI close. Okay, so for right now, I'm just going to put this in UI close. I don't love it, but so basically it's gonna go away. It's just around for a little bit and it's okay. It's not great, but it's not the end of the world for right now. Okay, so UI close is working. And at this point, we removed all of the end curses except for the one giant function, which is this one, state render. So let's get rid of it. I'm gonna include it in the UI for right now. And we can come back to it we can come back to Y in just a second, but let's just do it real quick. So we're gonna make this other one, UI render Sokoban. And it's gonna take a const Sokoban. Yeah, that's fine. Sokoban, and it's gonna take state, we'll just call it, because I think that's what I have there. So I have this. All right, I think that's all good. So now we're using our rendering right here. I think there's going to be a problem, but yeah. Okay, so state render. So what we'll do is it'll be UI render Sokoban, and then just we pass it in the state. All right, and now let's see if it works. We'll do level 0. It worked. And then we'll just do level 1 just for one more time. Oops, I made that unbeatable. So let's restart it. And boom, we beat it. Okay. So in terms of the organization, basically what we've done is we've made it so all the game logic is no longer included in our main C++ file, but we do still have our basic loop as part of it. And we've also made it so everything related to end curses is now in its own separate little world when it comes to rendering. So if, for example, we wanted to make it so we also supported our old version where it was printing it to the terminal without end curses, Then what we could do is we could create a second UI thing, and then we could also build an API for that, which would basically be the exact same thing, except instead of using end curses, we'd just be couting to the terminal. So that's the basics of what we're doing. And the next one, what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to say, let's make a menu system. So we'll do a main menu where it will allow you to play certain levels, and it will be based on this levels directory. So we'll also do probably one video where I just make a bunch of levels and go over some basic game design for Sokoban. And then after that, we'll make it into a progression. So all the levels, you'll have to play level 0 to unlock level 1, play level 1 to unlock level 2. And we'll make it so it's in the UI. So we'll do like a little tree view so you can see as you go along where you're making progress. And then eventually we'll get to the final level, which I assume is just going to be this level. And either we'll stop there or we'll also go on to add a tree search. But I'm not totally sure yet. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope something was interesting here. And I hope you have a good day. Bye.